We're back, everyone. It is the Revenge of the Fifth. I'm Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Hello there. Today we're digging in. It's early. It's not the 5th. It's actually the 28th of April. And we're dropping this today so you can drop everything and go see the movie that we saw in theaters at some point in our lives. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It's old. It's very old. It's 20 years old. And we're going to talk about it.
When you said it was old, I was like, that's not that old. But yeah, when you say 20 years, that's a significant amount of time.
2005, bro. I didn't even know you then.
Crazy. I wasn't even finished with college yet at that point. So that's how crazy it is.
Same.
But Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars Episode 3. We've got some interesting ratings here. On this movie, we've got a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 66% audience score. And then IMDb with a 7.6 out of 10. Surprised by those scores?
You know, after all this time, I don't think that I am. I think that over time, all of the prequel movies have gotten much better, especially after the sequel movies came out. The prequel movies, for some reason, just seemed so much better to me. So not surprised. And you got to think about the volume and the generational amount of reviews that are there. Good to see it still holding well above every single Sony Marvel movie.
Where do they come from? They don't even belong in the same breath as this. I feel
they don't.
like...
But I mean, if you want to talk about bad ratings, that's your go-to, buddy.
Very true. You're the Resident Jedi. I want to know your origin story with this.
Oh, I saw this in theaters a couple times when it first came out, I'm sure. Things from 2005 are probably a little hazy at this point, as that's 20 years ago. So I don't have ticket stubs, but I saw all three of the prequels multiple times. I probably saw the first one the most because the level of excitement was super high. And then after episode 2, which is my low point of the prequels, I did not see that one nearly as much in theaters. That was very, very Lucas-y dialogued. And then this one gave us so much of what we'd only heard about in Legends. I mean, the whole point of the prequels was to get to this movie and give us all of the backstory from the first 3 and really solidify and codify all of the thought process. So it was really exciting. Saw it in theaters a bunch and have watched it many, many more times. Grew up on the first 3 Star Wars like I know that you did. I was born in 83, so when that last movie was in theaters, I was in diapers. So all of the originals were on, VHS until there was a re-release in theaters in the 90s. But these I caught live and was in my college years when they all came out. Well, I was in high school when the first one came out and then college for the last 2. And yeah, I was hyped to see him then just as much as I'm hyped to watch them now. What about you? We're around the same age, so I'm assuming your backstory is similar, but possibly with less viewings.
A lot less viewings on the sequel trilogy. I probably will say that I've watched the original trilogy more than you have. It's almost embarrassing how many times I've watched it. But I'm proud of it too. So it's like I enjoyed them. It was just a lot of good memories for Star Wars. For the sequel trilogy, or the prequels, I should say, did not see any of them in theaters. So I think around that time, I had not an issue and not a sickness, but I would say that I was very interested in girls at that time. So at that point, I knew that a Star Wars date probably wasn't gonna be in the cards.
That's because you're just not a closer, son. That's because you're just not a closer.
I was closing on other business that did not have to deal with Star Wars. So that's part of my jaded impression on what the prequels were. I never watched them, and I would ask, was like, oh, they're pretty good. I was like, oh, I'm not going to see it. It's pretty good. I want it to be freaking great. And I did not get that aura or vibe from any of the Star Wars fans that have seen it. And so it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just not watch them. Didn't watch Attack of the Clones in theaters either. And it wasn't until after the, I want to say maybe 6 months or so after Revenge of the Sith that my brother actually told me, like, oh man, you got to watch those. They're like freaking awesome. Like, this is what happens, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I thought I was talking to Star Wars fans before. And my brother was really into Star Wars. So it was just like, okay, well, at least now I've got someone that I can trust their opinion on. And I went through them again. And I bought Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith at Hollywood Video because they were selling their DVDs, and I got them at a really great price. It was probably like $10 or something for the DVD at the time. Ugh, makes me sick looking through my DVD collection as to how much money Hollywood Video made off of me, just off of
Oh,
their
dude.
their rental discs.
I
But
guarantee it was more than they paid me when I worked there. Talk about a minimum wage job.
oof, rough.
Oof.
But
Free rentals though. Free rentals.
I didn't really watch Phantom Menace all the way through until maybe the early 2010s, and that's kind of where just after that I just I watched them, but still found them entertaining. I still got a chance to enjoy some of it, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, that's my origin story with the prequels. No theaters, all DVD.
Ugh. Man, so let's talk about the rewatch you did for this podcast. Obviously, not obviously, we did not record this as these are in theaters. It's like a looking forward to thing for us, but we have editing time, and we wanted to release it while the audience could still go out and rush out and check it out. What'd your rewatch look like for this episode?
I did it exactly how Tom Cruise would not want me to do it. I watched it on the small screen.
Oh,
I did watch probably the first 20 minutes of it on TV, but it was just a lot easier for me to do it from my phone. And then I think I caught the last 30 minutes on TV. It was on Disney Plus. It's accessible. It's there. It's like Old Faithful. If I want to watch a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie, that's where Disney Plus is, and that's where I go to.
I'll throw something like that on same way. Small screen background. It's a good. I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
It's a good background movie, and I turned it on our TV, in our main movie watching area with the surround sound and the sub and all that stuff. And my wife's like, "Haven't you seen this movie enough times to talk about it?" And I was like, I have to do a rewatch. I have to
Yeah.
prepare. I'm a professional. I just watched it on my couch with my subwoofer cranked up and enjoyed all of the THX audio that the audio system that I installed throughout our house could handle.
You bring up a very interesting point, or I should say your wife did, to where she asked you, haven't you seen this enough? We're at an age now, at least that in my opinion, I feel like we're at an age now, even the most memorable of movies from our childhood that we've watched a million times, we'll notice something different at the age that we're at now because we're looking for different things. We'll pick up on different things, and in some cases, I think I won't say that we've gone uber snobby and become movie critics by any means, but at the same time, we have our own critiquing system and our own things that we look for. So I find it very interesting to watch movies that, even though I think I know them like the back of my hand, there's some things on this rewatch that I picked up way different, and I noticed some things that was like, wow, I'm glad that I rewatched this, and it's some really good talking points that I'm sure we'll talk about throughout this episode.
There's so many things that as you like look at this movie through more of a critique lens to prepare to have a conversation about it that I think you gloss over in just like a background rewatch or just like a for good noise. First of all, it holds up, I think.
I agree. I don't think there's anything that really aged poorly. The visuals were still there. I think we have probably a keener eye as to that CGI probably could have been polished up a little bit better. They could have reworked something a little bit, or maybe the technology wasn't available at that time. But I think that would be the only thing that I would say would, in quotes, not hold up is just the technology from 2005 when this was released.
I mean, comparatively, with all of the technology that we have now with streaming and upscaling and so on, like there weren't many, if any, CGI scenes where I was just like, oh, that was bad. Like
Yeah, yeah,
if
there,
you
it's not
stood
bad.
this, if you stood this next to modern Star Wars, like Rise of Skywalker or Mandalorian, and you put them side by side, I don't know that you could pick out that much of a difference.
I think with the way that we are consuming media now, and when Lucas was bringing in more of the CGI and fleshing out some of the planetary effects and the Death Star attack and everything, I think it's worth it. I mean, when you are making a great movie and it's iconic, but hey, I would be cool if they re-released Endgame or some of the other Avengers movie. If there's some like crazy weird technology that makes it even better and even more immersive, then go for it. And so that's where I feel like, everyone who says like Lucas fucks around with the trilogy too much, like, no, go fuck yourself. If you want to make your movie better, by all means, go ahead and
So
make it better.
so this is where my problem with that is that I couldn't be more on the opposite end of the spectrum for you. Sure, the CGI and the Death Star scene and some of that, fine. But when you mess with the continuity of scenes and change things, like Han shot first, Greedo shot first, you
Yeah,
don't do that. You don't mess with the mythos. You can polish up you can add a little job. Even the added Jabba the Hutt scene doesn't bother me that much, even though like how did Jabba the Hutt grow so big in so few months? Um
yeah,
and so on, right? Like some of the things was just like, George, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
sure.
Um
And
the
I get
X-Wing
that.
scene, the X-Wing scene is beautiful.
Yeah,
Is beautiful.
absolutely.
But the cantina scene, no. No, I purposely own um a specific set of DVDs, not Blu-rays, DVDs that have the original cuts on them, just so I don't have to watch the remaster.
I think for the prequel trilogy, I think it still holds up fairly well from the visuals. I will say, like, I think the acting is pretty poor, but it was poor in some of the other movies too. We just kind of turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, I think that the prequels in general have something that the original trilogy didn't have. And that is George Lucas directing each and every movie. That, as much as I am a Lucas apologist and a giant fan, I think that when he directs, he uses his own written word. And when Carrie Fisher's not there to tell him that, George, that doesn't sound good, it forces somebody like Natalie Portman to say the word on the page and sound not like they're a good actor when they have to say it. And it forces somebody like Hayden Christensen, who in every other movie he's in was like nominated for awards and things, and then is shit on for his Anakin portrayal. I mean, if you think of the words, who could say those exact words any better? Is there that big of a difference? Mm.
There's a specific scene that is cringe to me and laughable at the same time, and it's the scene with Anakin and Padme, and they just talk about how I'm so in love with you. Like, no, I'm so in love with you. Love has made you
Yeah,
blind. Like, that was
I
the
feel like
fucking.
George wasn't wooing the ladies back in the day, but I feel like he let the film speak for itself back in the day.
When I first watched this movie, I just thought it was really cool because I hadn't gotten a chance to see a Star Wars with a young Darth Vader and him killing a bunch of kids and him and Obi-Wan battling. I thought that was so freaking awesome. And of course, Yoda being in it and Action Jackson, it was pretty awesome. So it's something that's a little bit interesting for me on the acting side. I never nitpicked the acting back in the day. Now I do. And I could see where a lot of the complaints came in for that. But
Yeah,
did you
but
have an issue with their chemistry or their acting, or were you
there's
at
a
the
reason I
time when
didn't
you?
see. There's a reason I didn't watch two as many times. It's because it's the love movie, but it's also like the writing's so bad.
But did you feel that way coming out of the theater or watching the movie in the theater?
I think I made a lot of excuses for it as a big fan at the time,
Okay.
but the rewatches can't lie. If you look at the 1 through 3 on the prequel trilogy, which one are you really going to watch? You're going to watch one or you're going to watch three? Nobody's watching two.
Oh, for me, it's 3, 2, 1. I
Really?
despise the first. Like
Oh,
I couldn't stand how long and drawn out the first one was.
hmm. I think that the first one has the second best lightsaber battle in all of Star Wars in it.
Sure.
So I'm an apologist for the Phantom Menace solely on that basis. And you get Liam Neeson, the Jedi. Like, I'm all in there. So many cool Jedi things that they put into that one. Yeah, I'm an apologist for the Phantom Menace, but Revenge of the Sith definitely has the best lightsaber fight in all of Star Wars.
I thought you believed Return of the Jedi was the best one.
Return of the Jedi is the
Which,
best one out of the original trilogy.
okay. I remember you saying that like that was your favorite one out of all of
It
them.
might be in my heart. Like, I love that scene
Gotcha.
because of I mean, if you look at it, it was filmed in 83 and they still used the color effects of it was such an epic conclusion to this story. But the one we all were teased with before these even came out was, how did Vader get in this suit? And it's like, Obi-Wan fucked him up, you know?
It's interesting to see like some of the memes where they showcase like what lightsaber fights used to look like. And it's Obi and Anakin going after each other like high speed. And then you cut to Rise of Skywalker, and all it is Rey just like swinging like a
Yeah.
baseball bat or an axe against
Yeah.
Kylo. And I was like, yeah, that is kind of strange that's the lightsaber fights have gotten worse.
I mean, if you
But I think
watch the
they
stuff that they did, like in prep, it was insane. I mean, you had two young guys who were super into doing it practically. Ewan McGregor was not like this giant star at the time, at least when he first started, right? And Hayden Christensen was, lauded in his childhood. But I mean, you had two actors who just went for it. And it was like the longest lightsaber fight ever, too, because it's intertwined with the Emperor and the Yoda fight. Like that whole
yeah.
sequence is so tight.
So what are some of like those big moments that you really liked or that at least warrant some comments and feedback from us for the listeners?
Well, I think that there's the different meme scenes that people have memed all over the place. The opera scene where they talk about the tale of why can't I think of his
Darth
name?
Plagueis the
Yeah, Darth
Wise.
Plagueis the Wise. That's memed out of control. The hello there scene where he drops in on General Grievous is memed like crazy. The Mustafar high ground thing is just all over the place and still funny every time you see it. So there's so much that's memed, even like the Vader scene where he's like oddly standing there gestating and yelling no, which is probably the worst part of the movie. But if you really look at this movie, it gives us so many of the moments that we were promised when we knew we were getting like a sequel prequel trilogy to the originals, because we knew where it was going. You knew where the numbers were. 3 had to get us to 4, which means that they had to show the turn. They had to build up Anakin, and then he had to fall. And going into this movie, we knew how semi badass he was. In the last movie, at the end, he got his arm cut off, and Yoda did flippy spinnies all over Count Dooku. But this movie, he's polished, he's killing it. You get him and Obi-Wan at their best going back and forth. Something that, fans are super wanted. Like, what was Obi-Wan really like, and what was Anakin really like? Did they have this chemistry? And in this movie, you lead off with it. You lead off with like the lethal weapon of Star Wars there with these two guys that are just they got banter, more the Lethal Weapon 2, maybe Lethal Weapon 3 version, right? Where they just have banter, they're going at it. They've done the toilet seat bomb thing already. Like they're just buds and they're looking out, right?
The toilet seat bomb thing was that where Obi-Wan was saying like we don't count that. That
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly right. You're 100% right. Um, yeah, I love that. That was a good call. But you get to see that, and you get to see this arc of Anakin being, you know, feeling guilt for his mother and projecting that guilt onto Padme. And then the stakes are higher because Padme is pregnant, and he looks to somebody to save him because he doesn't feel like he can save them. And it's just this second guessing and that. We get to see the Wookiee planet in a much better way than we did in the holiday special. No bucktooth weird kids there. Like
yeah.
full on Wookiee war going on, which is awesome. Side note, we get to see that Yoda knew Chewie, which then begs the question, did Obi-Wan know Chewie? Because in the cantina, he doesn't talk to Han. Chewie's like, dude, we got a thing. We could drive you there. It's cool. Right? So that could be a thing. We get to see Order 66, which was always kind of, rumored about in books and stuff as to what happened to the Jedi, but you just see it executed there. And you get that final battle, that Obi-Wan Anakin battle that is just epic. And side note, during that battle, you also get Palpatine Yoda, which, like, how many people would have thought that they would have fought, in the original trilogy? Both top of the game guys, alphas, if you will.
So I've got a slight question. I was going to say issue. I don't know if it's an issue,
What's your
but
issue?
it's Yoda versus Dooku. Why is it that Yoda wasn't able to take out Dooku and stand toe to toe with Palpatine?
So I'm gonna give you my opinion. Yoda showed restraint with Dooku because Dooku was Yoda's apprentice.
Okay. All right. Fair
And
enough.
then he chose to save Anakin and Obi-Wan when Dooku had to make a choice, right? I'm obviously not going to win this. You can take me out or you can save them. What are you going to do? So he let his apprentice go with the knowledge that, hey, you come back around, Daddy's going to come back and whip that ass again.
So do you think that Yoda was pissed off at Anakin that he killed his apprentice?
It, uh, that's a good question. I don't think Yoda knows what pissed off is. Yoda's like a monk.
I'm wondering though, because go back about 3 years when we first started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I had very strong feelings as we continued to rewatch a lot of these movies and discuss them on the podcast. And I think the Jedi scum now. I think they suck. Now, this is all in my head. I'm just making this up for this hypothetical scenario. Yoda in his head was like, fuck Anakin. He killed my apprentice. We could at least let him stand trial. And so that's why it's like just so many jabs at Anakin. And the Jedi Council, when I was watching that scene when they announce Anakin is not granted the rank of master, I was thinking, what a bunch of gaslighting sons of bitches. All it takes, I think it was a Mace Windu that was said, or that he said, like, we're not granting you the rank of master. Am I correct on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. He says that, and he could follow up with that and say, Anakin, we don't rank you, or we don't grant you the rank of master, but make up whatever it is. He could have sugarcoated it a little bit. They should have gone to Jedi HR
You want to give him an
to
action plan?
yeah, to at least let him
Mm.
know it's like, hey, we're not doing this now, but there's some light at the end of the tunnel. All they did was gaslight him and say, we're not granting you the rank of master. And then he
So
makes like I think he makes like a face or no, he says what? And then
he throws a fit.
yeah, action Samuel Jackson sits back in his chair like, "Oh shit, here we go. I told you guys. I told you we shouldn't have trusted this kid." That's it. That's really the chance that you're giving him. You're just gaslighting him. You are gaslighting Anakin Skywalker to be pissed off and angry at you.
I think that they're hurting Anakin so it gets back to Palps. That they don't like him fucking with Jedi affairs. So okay, here's here. He ain't a master though, and he gonna bitch to you about that all day long.
Still, that is like the scummiest. That's the scummiest
That's
mind
politics,
games.
baby.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's
what
all
that's what the
shit.
downfall that was the downfall of the Jedi is they got too involved in politics.
Yeah.
I think that was wonderfully portrayed in The Acolyte, yet we
Sure.
cancel that. And is also touched on in a lot of the Tales of the Jedi animated, as well as Clone Wars. Clone Wars is so good, dude. It's so good. It builds so much more of the story. And that came out after the movies. Um, but I can see where you're coming from, where they were very kind of protective of their own decision making, while they also knew that they're like, our powers aren't as strong. We obviously can't figure out who keeps killing people and doing all this naughty stuff. Like, what's going on?
They
And
needed the kids from the skeleton crew to figure out who killed the people because I bet those kids would have figured it out before the Jedi did.
that's real funny. That is hilarious. I agree with you there. I think that that reaction and that speaks to the fall and the why because he couldn't have unlimited power with the Jedi, but he thought he could have it with the Emperor or Palps, as I like to call him. Good old Palps. The other thing that I think is really funny is this movie holds true with Episode One that Obi-Wan just collects lightsabers from Jedi that are either dead or that he thinks are dead, right? Because Luke's green lightsaber, I believe, to the best of my fan knowledge, he found the Kyber. No, he formed that one. I thought that it was supposed to be Qui-Gon's for a while, right? And they never
Oh yeah.
really called out exactly where. There probably is something, and somebody in the comments is going to be like, "You don't know anything about Star Wars because you didn't know why it's green." But in general, right? There's
Obviously,
this
he went to the Jedi Temple to the Kyber crystals. It's
uh,
just
the planet wasn't blown up yet, so
uh,
but I do think that there's this really cool, like you understand where he got it. You also want to know where he kept Qui-Gon's lightsaber because but there's this really cool and this is super nerdy. I don't own it because I wasn't gonna pay the amount for it. But there's this really cool Mythos Obi-Wan figure that's out there. That's him like finding his way in the desert with like a backpack and all this stuff, and he's got two lightsabers in his pack, like stripped to the side of it. That's Anakin's and Qui-Gon's, and it just like puts all that like desert ratness into it. It's super cool. But in general, I feel like Obi-Wan is like the main character of the prequels because you get to see if you look at it from that perspective, I think the movies are better because you get to see the rise and fall of Anakin, right? But you also get to see Obi-Wan just grow as well from idealistic Padawan who thinks he knows everything to, you know, master who fails repeatedly, but still gets up off the mat and tries to move forward.
do you think he really failed? Or do you think it was more of the council that influenced the erosion of their relationship?
I think that there's a lot of different pieces to that, but if I don't think of it as like failure that can be assigned, I'm more talking about it as the emotional struggle that character could go to thinking he failed. And he says it after the lightsaber fight, after he cut all the arms and legs off that he had left and left him with his robot arm, said, I failed you, right? And that failure cut so much deeper because it was Qui-Gon's ask. It was his master's dying wish. He felt he failed Qui-Gon because he couldn't protect him from old flippy sticks, Darth Maul. and all of that goes to like he's honoring his legacy, which I think we then see in one of my favorite new Star Wars pieces, the Obi-Wan show, where he gets to not fail a little bit with Leia, but he has to face the demons of Vader and things
I
that
th-
he's ignored. I this makes me want to watch that now. So I'm probably going to queue that up and hit the Obi-Wan show in the next couple days. But um it's just it's probably one of my favorite characters in the mythos.
yeah, he's a great character, and I think the only reason he is that great of a character is not because of Alec Guinness, but because of Ewan McGregor. And I think he just did a fantastic job, and he brought a likability to the character. By the time we see Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, he's just like this old crusty fuck that is sorry, he's given up on life because he did not need to let Vader strike him down. That was like the stupidest thing.
But
You
he
could
knew he
have
had to.
definitely, he could have fought back and bought them time at least, not just like give up and then have the stormtroopers come in and just blast at the Millennium Falcon. He could have fought them all, probably would have died, but at least that way it was more of a sacrifice and he for sure got them out of there.
He did it at the perfect time when Luke saw it. And it also could be a fuck with him moment, right? Because he didn't want Luke to know that Vader was his dad. So he
Sure.
had to build negative emotions for Vader in Luke. And what better way?
So, I don't know what that's not a better way. That is not a better way. That is
For
a
him, you never know. Like
uh
his final mission was complete. He delivered and brought the twins together. And they're out there again. His mission's done. He's winding it down, baby. And he doesn't think that I'm putting my own spin on Alec Guinness's the writing around Alec Guinness's character with all of the context that we have now. But if you failed the dad that much, would you feel comfortable training the son? You're testing the son on the Falcon, right? With a little bit of the force here and there. But you're like, go to Yoda. And now he can't go to you. He has to go to Yoda because you're dead. You're fucking dead. And the one thing I love, I gotta say, about Ewan McGregor in these movies is he took so many mannerisms and things from Alec Guinness. You just see him do this,
yeah.
and you're just like, oh, I know where that's from. It just is like a warm hug. And when they brought him back and he was just geeked to do it, it's so cool. And to know that his uncle was in the OG Star Wars and to hear him talk about how he saw the first ones in the theater just because his uncle was in it for a few minutes and he was really excited about that.
His uncle was Wedge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got a question because I heard is it a Commander Antilles? Is that Wedge's dad that was referred to in this?
It could be.
Okay.
It very well could
Um,
be.
that was one of the things I probably remember it from when I was younger, but I picked it up like Antilles. That's must be Wedge's dad or his grandpa or someone.
It could be my guess is they sprinkled it in there as an
Of
Easter egg.
yeah,
You
of
know?
course. Like, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead over there,
Hmm.
Jar Jar. Like, just like
Yeah.
someone says
Hmm.
Jar Jar just like out of nowhere. And sure as shit, Jar Jar shows up at the funeral at the end. But
Hmm.
yeah, I know it's very similar to some of the Marvel callbacks or Easter eggs that you'll drop in on something just because, like, oh, here's fan service. Like, oh, that must be a relative of so and so.
Yeah. And
But
and for those fans that are super deep into this that like to comment and hate in the comments, go ahead and tell me who that Antilles was and why I should know. Please. Like tell us that we're amateurs and please write at least a 3 or 5 paragraph essay on this topic because we know you've got that much hate to give. You go
we do
warrior up
have
those keyboards, baby.
there are some of our listeners or critiquers, if you will, that will go into that much detail. And I actually applaud those people that go into that. I might not necessarily agree with it, but like good for you for coming to battle with your knives sharpened and yeah, dropping some knowledge or your opinions for us.
Hey, you bring some passion to something because it's probably not a woman. Um, so as you were rewatching this, we talked how the CGI, still held up and is still better than I would say better than a lot of the things that we've talked about where the CGI is terrible lately. Like I still think that even in 2005, this is better than some modern movies. Um,
Sure.
we talked about the Lucasy dialogue. Um, I want to talk about what did you notice anything new this round? Because I did, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh gosh. Um, I I don't know if it's necessarily new, but it's stuff that I noticed a lot more and paid attention to it a lot more. So the acting between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, pretty rough, pretty rough altogether. But that it's not, I'm not like super pissed off at it. But some of the other things that I noticed is just the Jedi suck. Like, and watching this throughout, we were talking about the succession of like, oh, should he have just, taken care of Luke and stayed alive and coached him and mentored him? Like, no, no, I don't send him to Yoda. Keep in mind, Yoda's apprentice was Dooku, so that's not much better, right? So it's just like I feel like there's failure after failure after failure for all the Jedi, and there's very few of them that I actually liked. And then also Organa, Bail Organa, kind of irked me
Don't hate on Jimmy
because
Smits.
oh, I will. I will. So
Mhm.
that at the point where that Jedi comes and saves him from the clone troopers and everything, and then he just sits there and watches him get shot, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm getting the fuck out of here." And then he jumps into his little spaceship and drives
His
off. I was like,
pitmobile, his
Jesus, man,
space
like
pitmobile.
you just wanted to see him die and then you wanted to get out of there. You didn't want to get out of there while he was holding them all off. You wanted to watch him die and then realize, oh shit, okay, better get going. That's I'm that nitpicky when it's coming up to the shortcomings of the in quotes good guys.
Mm, yeah.
What about you?
The thing that I noticed that I talked earlier about that I watched it in full surround, like with my home theater setup, if you will. I'm not that bougie. I just have a couple speakers in the ceiling or not anything crazy, but they've got a decent amount of power. I get a nice head unit on them. So the scene where Vader is being converted, right? He's getting his upgrades, and Natalie Portman is having children. There's this heartbeat that I don't think I noticed before or didn't stick
Okay.
out to me as it declined as both of them were dying essentially, right?
Yeah.
As Natalie Portman was having the kids, her heartbeat got fainter and fainter. And as they switched to Anakin, before they put the helmet on him, the heartbeat was fainter and fainter, and then stopped when the heartbeat when the helmet closed,
Hmm.
and then something different kicked on, like a new heartbeat. So they showed the moment that Anakin died, essentially, and how it lined up with when Padme died as well. And I thought that from a sound and thought perspective was probably one of the best conceived scenes in Star Wars. As much as we like to focus on the no part of it, if you go up to that point, it's strong. But then it's sullied by this wacky arm flailing tantrum.
So I gotta interject right now
Hmm.
because as you were talking about how Padme, like the heartbeat and everything, you want me to circle this back to The Last Jedi
Circle
and
it back, buddy.
why, okay, Luke sucks because his genetics suck. Padme just fucking gave up after childbirth and she's like, peace, I'm out of here. Luke got his cardio from his mom.
Okay.
That's my issue.
And Leia
Hashtag
flew because of.
Hashtag Luke has no cardio. That's been my biggest issue with The Last Jedi. He just fucking gave up. He was just like, I'm tired. I think I'll go to die now. And that's what happens to Luke. And then I was like, oh, I shouldn't have been surprised because Padme just gave up after childbirth. What mother gives up after childbirth? That's
You
kind of
don't know.
insensitive for
Yeah,
anyone
you
who
don't know
is.
what he did to her with his chokey choke.
Yeah. But it comes full circle. I was like, oh, okay, yep. Luke has bad, poor genetics. He shouldn't have done that force projection because just would have gotten him too tired and he would
He
have lost
needed to
his will to live.
stretch. At his age, he needed to stretch, is what you're saying.
But I'm saying it in tongue in cheek, but at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have been surprised because apparently his parents suck.
We talked about a lot of the performances and the characters. We talked about Ewan McGregor. We talked about Hayden and Natalie. But the one person that I think gets left out of the conversation with all of these prequel movies is McDiamond or Ian McDiarmid. I can't do weird names. You know that. Not weird. Like, I don't even know. I
Ian
couldn't get it out.
McDermott.
Yeah, it's not weird at all. But I loved how hammy his performance was
It
in all
is.
of these. He's just hamming it up. Like, oh, you know I'm the emperor, but you can't say it out loud yet. Um,
It's
I
it's
love it.
very much like Christian Bale and Batman too. Like he does the
Yes.
180. It's
Yes, very much. But
you
did
must
you
kill
know
him.
did you know he played Palpatine in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
then
made him
came
look old
back.
as fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the makeup came a long way. But and then he came back for Rise of Skywalker because that was necessary. Um, thanks,
Somehow he
JJ.
survived.
Thanks, JJ. Um, but I feel like he doesn't get enough love as just a solid actor who leans into the fact that this is fantasy and I'm the evil villain and he just does the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
I'm
It's
surprised
like
he
if he
never
had a
did
mustache,
this.
he could curl it.
Yeah.
I've never been annoyed with like never Martha'd by Ian McDiarmid. From the first movie was like, we will watch your exploits with great attention. Like, and everybody's like, oh, he said the thing. Yeah, we know what happens already. That's that his performance, because you know what's gonna happen and who he is. And these movies in general, like you know what comes after them. And I think that in of itself is such a challenge to overcome because audiences know the ending already. So they're always going to shit a little bit on how you get there. But I think that over time, these movies age way better. I have a much better appreciation for the prequels now than I think I did then. And I
Do you
think that
think
most people do.
do you think that'll happen for the sequel trilogy?
Now they're garbage. I hope so. I the
Just that's it.
problem the problem with the sequel trilogy is
J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson.
Ryan
That's
Johnson, not J.J. Abrams. But the problem is the prequels were kind of better, and then the stuff that came after it was also really good.
wait, the
Like
stuff that came after it.
Mandalorian, Book of
Oh. When you
the
said the prequels were better and then the stuff that came after, I thought you meant like
the
there's
prequels and
only
the post sequels.
gotcha.
Star Wars was better than I think the Force Awakens I have a soft spot for. Maybe it's because
I
it's the
enjoyed
first
it.
time I saw Star Wars in a movie theater since 2005, right? Um, but just the positive way that we saw Han and we got to see everybody, and Luke didn't talk or run and was just there at the end. It was so I loved it. I liked it a lot. It's definitely my favorite of the sequels.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
but yeah, they it was all downhill from there. Much like the fall of Anakin, the fall of the sequels.
Knowing that Anakin turns into Darth Vader, did you buy it this time around, or did you critique it at all in any fashion?
I think there was a point in time where I realized that Anakin, like, it wasn't Hayden Christensen acting whiny. It was Anakin's character was just kind of a whiny, entitled bitch who then gets like really has this imposter syndrome and all this pressure of being the chosen one and then flips. And I think that the more you can appreciate the context of the story, the more you can appreciate Hayden Christensen's acting and the more you can appreciate the times he didn't look before he leaped or think before he leaped, right? Which led to him getting all of his arms and legs cut off. So I did appreciated it. I liked it. I thought that there was somebody who thinks they're above the system and they're smarter than everybody, but they're not. They always get their comeuppance. What about you? You asked the question, you got to answer it too.
No, I don't buy it. I think it was just rushed. I think that's what the problem was for me. It was
Mm.
just rushed. I think they could have done a better job. Hypocrisy is strong because I'm thinking back to the second movie, and they did quite a bit. I think they did more in the second movie than they did in the third movie of really kind of pushing him to where he becomes Darth Vader, and you kind of buy his downfall, if you will. Because there's a certain point of desperation where everyone in this world will probably succumb to where it's like, okay, yeah, I'll do anything, whatever, right? But for Anakin, I just don't think he was at that point, and I don't think it meant a whole lot because there was too many conflicts and dynamics going on. And I know that's probably to attribute to his dark-sided character, but at the same time, when you have the chosen one and he's upset about having these death visions, and then he's upset about having the not rank of master, and then he's thinking Obi-Wan's going behind his back, and the council are trying to under whatever, right? There's a lot there, but it just felt faster in this movie, and I guess I just wanted a little bit more to be drawn out.
Well,
I
you
would have
got
been
some of it in the last movie though.
yeah, yeah, you
You
do. You
got you
do.
got you got him butchering sand people in a
It's years later
vengeful
though.
state.
It's
It's
years later. People
it's not
can
that many years later,
oh, it's enough. It's
is
certainly
it?
enough. Yeah, absolutely. Grew his hair out and everything, man. But but no, it's I think all joking aside, I just think it's yes, you see more of it in the second one, but I think it should be more even in the third movie, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, that it could be a faster descent, but at the same time, it's not, a week after Attack of the Clones.
No,
That's
it's
where the
3 years.
difference is.
It's
Yeah,
3 years.
that's a long time.
Understandably, they had to tell a whole story in 3 movies. But if you would have watched animated Star Wars things like Clone Wars, there are multiple steps Anakin takes throughout that journey during the Clone War
Was
that
that during the release of those movies though?
no, it was after.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter for like my opinion still would have stayed the same. I would have appreciated it, watching Clone Wars and saying like, "Oh, this is what he went through." If this was happening at the same time, then like, "Oh, I can wholeheartedly agree. Yes, there was a whole lot of build up and story there. It just didn't happen in the movies." Going back and watching those movies and now revisiting those movies, it's like, yeah, it still seems forced. That's where like, our conversations I think I'll always have more of a harsh critique on it just because I am not as much of a fan as you are, and you've obviously consumed a whole lot more media.
Very true. It's the same way that you love Terminator more than me. Terminator 1 versus the obviously better Terminator 2
Depends on how you look at it. Depends
from a
on how you
certain
look
point of
at it.
view.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. So I think I'll always try to come up with those controversial takes because that's what I'm noticing throughout my rewatches is like the controversy, the inadequacies, or at least just my opinion on how things unfolded.
I like it. I think that it's a very valid point of view. And I think for the to your point, for the non yeah, I hate to talk about myself like this, but for the non hyper fan, it's a very valid observation. We've talked about it at length. Final thoughts. Has this movie aged well for you?
I'll give it. a thumbs up on aging well. Visuals are still there. Acting is kind of shit, but hey, there's shitty acting in today's movies too.
Yep.
So that's not that's not Martha and me at all. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think it holds up. It's definitely, like I said, the prequel episode I'll turn on the most.
Does it add anything to the larger Star Wars universe?
I think you get the things that you were always promised, and that's the part that I think was the hardest like challenge to land with this movie is showing the fall in enough detail to your point, but fitting in everything else that was talked about. Order 66, the rise of Palpatine, why he looked the way he did, how the Jedi were defeated, the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight, the Luke and Leia pregnancy, like they fit it all in. There's like, if you think about it, right, this is packed with major moments in the Skywalker saga, like major catalyst points. So for me, I think it branches off so many things, more so than many movies.
Overall, I think it is a good amount of fan service, good action, and I think for like the overall universe itself, it does help fill in some of those gaps. But it also leaves some exposition, like if they were to do something in between, which obviously they have, in terms of a timeline of everything, it allows you and gives some freedom of where to go in certain directions. Is it as clean as I expected it to be? Not necessarily, but it definitely adds to the whole Star Wars universe for sure.
So would you say that the transition from episode 3 to episode 4 is satisfying? Do they set it up enough? Do they close one door so the other door aligns?
I'm going to say no on that one because it just felt rushed. Even the naming of the kids seemed rushed. It's like, all right, popped out of my body. You're going to be named Luke.
Yeah, we
Oh,
don't get a Y on the names.
a second one pops out, Leia. Like, not even an explanation of, like, oh, I felt this as I was pregnant with you, and like these names came to me, and I knew you were going to be something. It would have been fine if it was
Yeah,
like one of
as
those nice
somebody
little,
who's named a person, there's usually thought behind it in
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, not just I like alliteration,
Yeah,
and I'm
they
gonna
have to
go
have
die.
L's because obviously the Republic lost. So I need to name my kids things that start with L.
Big L's all across the board for everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, anything from you like for the transition from 3 to 4?
I think the thing I like about Star Wars is it leaves space between the two. So you can fill things in. And that's always been the draw, right? All the books, all of the side things, it leaves you hungry for more detail, but still gets you there. And I think that candidly, this is like a losing battle for George, right? To come in and say, I'm gonna set up the most loved sci-fi movie of all time. You're never gonna do a perfect job of that unless you're Rogue One. But like Rogue One's transition from shot A directly to shot B is so
Yeah.
clean, but Rogue One does not deal with any characters that you see ever again, except for Vader in one specific scene and Tarkin. But they're not the main characters. They're very, sub characters and supporting characters there. But that I think Rogue One is like one of the more perfect transitions, but you can't always get that. I think this does enough. This sets it up the same way that Star Wars set up Empire and that Empire set up Jedi. Looseness with many things that can happen in between.
Do you have a favorite line?
No. Obviously Hello There gets me, and I think that it's a solid reference, but the high ground reference also is is my favorite meme, as
Yeah.
it's consistently used. What about you?
Well, I just for the meme aspect, I love the ones where it's like they show that clip and it's just like a hot dog rolling on a roller or something like that. It's just funny to me. But my favorite line is an unexpected one, and it's a blink if you'll miss or blink and you'll miss it type of line. But it kind of just talks to me personally, and it's the line where Anakin just says, "What?" after they say he's not going to be master. Because you got Samuel L. Jackson sits back, gaslighting him. It's like, I'm analyzing and
Don't make me
testing
tell
you
you
on
about
your
Ezekiel,
response.
kid.
Yeah. But that's my favorite line because it's just so representative of the Jedi being gaslighting pieces of shit that's why I like it so much. He was
Oh
just
man.
literally saying what, and it
Say
brings
what
up this
again?
it brings up this flood of emotions like that's a legit question. What? And yet they didn't do anything about that. Like
So
they didn't preface you're not master because of this. Like it's so ridiculous. But yeah, that's my
do you
favorite
think
line,
that
favorite moment.
was do you think that was George referencing Pulp Fiction? What? They speak English and what?
That would be hilarious if they did something like that. That would be
I
great.
mean
Say what
they
again?
did engrave a bad motherfucker on his lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah. But it's that I agree with your lines as well. I think my favorite moments is just the lightsaber battle, but my favorite quote is just that what.
What?
It's so simple, yet it's really exposition for how I feel about Star Wars and the Jedi.
So what you're saying is his answer should have been like, "Do I look like a bitch?"
Yeah, that's what it should have been because it's all about the question. Ask a question if you want to know that type of answer. Don't just leave an open-ended question to where they could just bombard you with bullshit and make you feel like an idiot.
That's so great. I love it.
Got a question for you though, Mark. We've talked about the revenge of the Sith and this Star Wars bonanza, but can you do this movie all day?
Absolutely, I can do this movie all day, and I will be in a theater with this. I've tried to convince my wife that we should take our 4-year-old to this, and she's told me, "Don't you think there's a little too much killing in this one?" And I'm like, "What? They
Not
just kills a bunch of
enough.
younglings. What's the
Yeah,
difference?"
not even on camera. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, no. But my son at this point runs around the house and yells, "I've got a weapon!" and starts like swinging it at people. Like he has a lightsaber and a Zelda sword and Maui's hook. And he's just like, "I need my weapons to go places." So he's in um that masculine violent phase for some reason.
Good for him. Good
Yeah,
for him.
no. Good for him. But you get hit in the nipple with a lightsaber, it really fucking hurts. Um, so just throwing that out there. But
You just gotta
yeah,
force
just
push
gotta
it
push
away.
it. Just gotta push it real good.
Yeah.
Feel like I'm gonna use that line again at some point. Uh, so I'm gonna ask you the same question, Dan, as I can obviously do this movie all day. With your hate of the Jedi, can you enjoy the Revenge of the Sith all day?
The acting is rough. It really just solidifies why the Jedi are pieces of shit. And yeah, I can do it all day. I like this movie. As much as it seems like I don't, it's just critiques and things that I notice. You know, you can still dislike or point out some of the shortcomings in your favorite movies. And I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite of all time, but it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies because
Oh yeah.
of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, because you get to see Anakin not I don't agree with the transformation, but you get to see him transform into Darth Vader. And it is a space adventure worthy of the Star Wars name. So I have a good time. I try to look for some things that I like and things that might view differently just as I've gotten older, but still a rocking good time for Star Wars.
A rocking good time.
I'm gonna watch this over the sequel trilogy for the most part. I think maybe 9 times out of 10, I'll watch Revenge of the Sith over the sequel trilogy, and there is a little bit of nostalgia there, like is even though my nostalgia lies more so in the original trilogy because you have those familiar characters, because it's such great action and such great fun and a rocking good time. Yeah, can do it all day, no problem.
Love it. We agree. It's rare, but we do.
Never would have thought.
Who would have thunk it?
But hey, that wraps it up for our Revenge of the Sith revisit. I'm Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Don't forget to go out there, celebrate your pre-May the 4th, and watch this movie on the big screen, because who knows when the next time you're going to be able to is. Like, subscribe, hit us up on all the socials at I Can Do This All Day Podcast. Leave some comments in the comments section about where we're wrong and how we don't know anything about Star Wars. We love those comments. Bring them on. Bring on. Feed your hate. And if you smash a button with a hard enough anger, it counts 3 times. So go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe, and you're here our next jaunt into the Star Wars, which we're going to do a double dose of May the 4th this year. You got the pre-dose. The next dose is coming.
Until then, we will see you. I felt like that's a shitty ending. Is this the this is not the May the 4th episode?
No, it's the 28th.
Are you going to say anything about May the 4th on the 4th episode?
I might. You just want to say May the 4th be with you? Is that
I was going to no, I don't want to say
wait.
I don't want to say May the 4th be with you. I just want to say and also with you. That's all I want to say.
Oh.
But if it doesn't fit on this episode, then we'll do it the other episode. So
well, in that route, it appears that I have the high ground. So until next time, we'll see you on the next one. And also with you.